Artifact 1 Standard 1.1 is the Criterion 2. Set professional learning goals to explore and apply pedagogical approaches made possible by technology and reflect on their effectiveness. I had two goals for this class. My first goal was to design a unit plan which utilized at least 3 different technology tools to support instructional strategies that engage students in cooperative learning activities. The second goal was for me to be able to identify and evaluate technology to support digital teaching and learning so that the various types of technology can then be curated and shared with my colleagues. For goal 1, I created a unit plan that involved 3 different technology tools. For formative assessments, I used both Genially and Ziplet. The final product students produced for the unit used a third tech tool, Poplet. Since students had already learned about Hernando de Soto and other parts of the history standard for Georgia studies, I used Genially to review what they remembered about de Soto. Using Genially, I gave this De Soto quiz to students working with a partner as a formative assessment. If students answered incorrectly, they had a chance to go back and choose a better answer. I like that Genially made it easy to set up a quiz that was gamified so that it held students' interest. The Genially quiz got students excited to show what they had learned because I made it fun by putting in fun facts about De Soto if they got it the answer right and a fun comment if they got it wrong. Another technology tool that I used to achieve goal 1 was Ziplet. Ziplet lets you create an online classroom where you can post questions for your students to respond to with emojis and words by selecting an answer choice. What I like about Ziplet is how it can display the responses in 3 different ways. Ziplet provides an easy way for me to see who is getting it versus who needs help. For students' final product for the unit, I had them use Poplet to create concept maps to demonstrate mastery of the history standard that they were learning about. Students had to organize the ideas and concepts in a way that made sense to them. They had to read through information to extract only the information that answered their questions, which meant that they had to evaluate the information. Finally, students produced a concept map that showcased the way that they had made connections through synthesizing information. Doing this activity forced students to think critically. The activity helped them see the importance of evaluating information from sources and moved them from being passive learners to being constructors of knowledge. Using Poplet allowed me to see who can synthesize information and who maybe needs more practice. Here's an example of a student-created concept map using Poplet. For goal 2, I plan to identify and evaluate possible resources to support digital teaching and learning. I created an evaluation form to be used with all tech resources. Some of the items from the tools that I evaluated include the tool's privacy policy, whether it's shared or didn't share student data, whether it was ad-free, its ease of use, how well it relates to the curriculum, its accessibility features, and whether it could be used for student collaboration. These are some examples from the evaluations of Poplet and Genially. Another part of goal 2 that I was able to meet was to curate technology evaluations and ideas for others. To meet this goal, I used Wakelet to curate links to both the evaluations and to websites and technology tools that would be helpful to teachers. Wakelet allowed me to easily share my curated collections. Artifact 1 Standard 4.2 is the Criterion 13, co-learn with students about a new digital tool. I had never used Poplet before using it in the unit plan with students where they had to create a concept map to make connections between ideas. Prior to students creating their own, I created a checklist for them to follow when they constructed their own concept maps. I also created a simple concept map to share with students, and I created pictures where I tried to help them understand how Poplet worked. When I was creating my sample Poplet that you see right here, I didn't feel like I had a lot of trouble creating it. It was very easy with my computer with this mouse that I have. I did, it took a little bit of time to understand how Poplet works. Like you have to drag this out and then you can type in the box and things like that. What I didn't know, however, is that when the students were trying to do it with their Chromebooks, they were unable to do it as easily with a mouse pad versus a mouse. So sometimes when they would come up and get help from me, I would just ask them to share their Poplet with me so that I could more easily help them. Another thing that we all struggled with Poplet and didn't really understand why it did this, and it was kind of frustrating, is that you could, make the boxes smaller, but when you came back into the program, the boxes would be back very large and stretched out like you see right here with this one. And so I'm not really sure about this. why it did that. So it made the process of this a little more aggravating for the students. And we just had to learn together about how to do things. And once students started figuring it out, some of the more tech savvy students, I would have them help the other students, especially if I was backed up with a bunch of students asking for help. It seemed that every class period had students who taught me things. One student figured out that we had to make our poplets public before we could share a poplet with anyone else. If we didn't make it public, then the link wouldn't work. Another class showed me an alternate way to use the Find on Page feature of the Chrome browser, Control+F. I shared with students a trick that another student had shared with me before, using a two-finger press on the mouse pad to get the right-click menu to come up. Working one-on-one with students also afforded me an opportunity to see where each student was, and many times during those interactions, students showed me new ways to do something. When reflecting on this lesson plan, I thought about ways to improve the lesson and ways to improve the use of technology. If I were to redesign this lesson, I would offer choices in which programs they could use to create their concept maps. Some programs may be better suited to being used with a Chromebook and a mouse pad. I would probably also require that students use a certain number of sources for their information, which would give them more opportunities to evaluate sources. I tried to make it easier for students by creating a checklist, but I will probably redesign the checklist before doing this project again. I should have been breaking it down into smaller chunks with guiding pictures to go along with the text. Thank you.